Hello, my name is Natasha Alfonso Ahmed. I'm a principal planner with Arlington County and the project manager for the Lee Highway Planning Study, also known as Plan Lee Highway. The county is currently in phase 2 of the study. In collaboration with the county, AECOM, the planning consultant, has completed the land use scenario analysis for the neighborhood areas along the corridor. Information about the process, including why we are studying Lee Highway, as well as the corridor-wide and neighborhood area concepts, can be found on the project website. This narrated presentation explains in more detail the purpose of the study. The county's comprehensive plan was established in 1960. Since 1960, the only areas along Lee Highway that have been planned are Cherrydale and East Falls Church. Redevelopment is already happening outside of these planned areas. Additional growth is expected, and there is pressure to develop more than what is currently permitted by right. Given the character of Lee Highway and limited planning to date, there is an increasing desire within the community to improve the corridor and consider how future development can transform the character in a proactive rather than a reactive manner. Without a plan for Lee Highway, the county will be forced to make decisions as development applications come in, which is reactive rather than proactive. Improvements to the infrastructure and transportation systems, public schools, facilities and spaces, as well as decisions for increased density should be done comprehensively. It requires careful and detailed planning so the corridor grows responsibly and without negative impacts to its economy and surrounding neighborhoods. Developing a plan for Lee Highway with a bold vision, clear policies and goals, targeted strategies for managing growth, predictable development outcomes, and clear expectations for community improvements will help guide long-term public and private investment that enhances the corridor's economy and livability conditions. Throughout our engagement, a number of shared aspirations have come to the front. Specifically, that redevelopment must correspond with increased school capacity and public facilities, as well as an enhanced stormwater infrastructure and attention to sustainable development, including energy efficiency. Many have expressed that heightened density can provide other added benefits, including affordability and increased commercial and transit options. Others have said that integrating public facilities with retail, dining, and other uses in mixed-use developments provide additional opportunities for expanding community services. Relative to land use, economic vitality, and housing, there is consensus on creating mixed-use activity centers to transform Lee Highway into a walkable Main Street, increasing the diversity of housing types along the corridor to increase affordability, social diversity, and ability to age in place, and retaining existing businesses while adding more neighborhood-serving and family-oriented businesses that are pedestrian-friendly. In terms of the public spaces, transportation, and urban design, there is consensus that Lee Highway and the other major arterials in the planning area should provide better and safer accessibility for pedestrians and bicyclists. Many believe that transit services should be improved and increased, and that additional opportunities for gathering in a variety of spaces and connecting with nature should also be provided. This all contributes to a bold vision for Lee Highway, based on the power of place, a place that is resilient, renewable, and re-energized. The goal is that by 2050, Lee Highway will become a green Main Street of vibrant neighborhoods linking iconic local businesses, mixed-use activity nodes, sufficient and mixed-use housing supply, and signature public spaces. Lee Highway will become a place that invites and enables safe and equitable access for all users, including pedestrians, bicyclists, transit riders, and motorists of all ages. Provides a diverse housing supply that enables equitable access for people of all ages and income levels. Builds environmental sustainability and resiliency to manage stormwater effectively, reduce energy demand in buildings, promote mass transit and walkability, and achieve carbon neutrality in support of county policies. Promotes development that enhances the economic well-being of the corridor through investments, jobs, and a larger tax base. Provides community facilities and gathering spaces for all ages and income levels. features inspiring architecture and landscapes designed and constructed to last for generations. And lastly, celebrates, honors, and acknowledges its past, present, and future through vibrant public spaces, art, and culture. The planning study will evaluate the 9 key planning elements listed here. For each of these elements, the county has developed preliminary aspirational goals, which are consistent with other countywide goals and objectives and reflect many of the community's aspirations. The community's aspirations, the bold vision for 2050, and the county's aspirational goals are ambitious. There are several drivers at the global, national, and local level that will impact how Lee Highway evolves in the future. At a global level, we are seeing increased global warming and rainfall. Storm events are getting stronger and happening more frequently, which have led to serious damages caused by flooding in many of the neighborhoods along Lee Highway. We are also seeing a shift from fossil fuels to renewable and clean energy, which is moving us towards energy efficient and sustainable building practices. Additionally, we are seeing changes in transportation and jobs, and the COVID-19 pandemic has affected many aspects of our lives, economy, and society. Over the last year, the call for equity and unity in our nation has grown. In Arlington, equity is front and center and will influence how we plan our communities. At a local level, we are seeing an increase in population and pressure for development beyond what is being permitted by right, and there is an increased demand on resources and services. Arlingtonians have greater choice in mobility type than before, and more options will become available by 2050. On-demand mobility helps extend the reach of transit and can connect Lee Highway neighborhoods with corridor businesses and the RB corridor. However, to successfully expand on-demand options along Lee Highway, we will need to create the infrastructure to support these emerging mobility types and minimize conflicts. The transportation systems around which our communities have been built are on the verge of a significant transformation. Population growth and climate change concerns are pushing cities to incorporate intelligent transportation systems to make driving and traffic management better and safer for everyone. New transportation technologies are emerging to meet these challenges, including connected and autonomous vehicles, alternative fuels, and traffic analytics, as well as local zoning and planning policies that support transit-oriented development. Connected vehicles use technology to communicate with nearby vehicles and infrastructure. These vehicles have significant implications on safety, accessibility, convenience, and our physical environment. Connected vehicles help prevent crashes by allowing cars to communicate with each other to warn drivers of potential collisions. Mobility applications provide real-time information about traffic conditions, which can help transportation managers monitor the performance of systems and ultimately reduce the environmental impact of vehicle trips. Automated vehicles are vehicles that are designed and constructed to move autonomously for certain periods of time. This means a safety-critical control function, such as the steering, throttle, or braking, occurs without driver input. Automated vehicles can also be connected with other vehicles and infrastructure. However, these vehicles operate in isolation from other vehicles using various internal sensors, LiDAR, and radar to detect its environment and navigate safely. This technology has been very expensive to develop and include on test vehicles. While on-demand mobility reduces the need for traditional parking, it can require more pickup and drop-off areas and curbside management systems to avoid conflicts. The lines are blurring between home and work, dining and retail, products and experiences, and online versus brick-and-mortar businesses. As freelance work and teleworking increase, people are demanding greater social connection with their neighborhoods and nearby destinations. Flexible ground floor spaces that can accommodate change in business models and the growing desire for teleworking will play an important role in the corridor's evolution. As previously stated, redevelopment is already happening along the corridor. Additional growth is expected, and there is pressure to develop more than what is currently permitted by right. Both the private and public sectors face several challenges. For the private sector, construction costs and land prices are high. The approval process is cost prohibitive, and time-consuming, which increases the overall development costs. Zoning standards are restrictive. They do not encourage the development of new types of housing, and the minimum parking requirements are too high, which also increases the overall development costs. Many parcels along Lee Highway are shallow and have other physical constraints that prohibit development. Because there is no plan to guide private development and no incentives for greater investment, development on Lee Highway can be unpredictable and risky. Housing affordability for many Arlington residents is an increasing challenge. While there is a strong housing market in the planning study area, there are significant issues related to declining affordability and meeting the range of housing needs for current and future residents of all races, incomes, ages, and abilities. Lee Highway needs significant improvements to support the Vision Zero action plan, which includes traffic safety goals and strategies for eliminating fatalities and serious injuries caused by collision. Along Lee Highway, the highest number of collisions with pedestrians occur at major intersections near the I-66 on and off ramps and where the roadway has the most curb cuts, is widest, and most difficult to cross. Watershed scale investment in stormwater system capacity and measures to provide overland relief will be required to reduce risks from extreme flooding in priority watersheds. The Lee Highway corridor crosses several of these priority areas. As the community grows, so does the need for facilities that serve them, including schools, cultural facilities, recreational facilities, government offices, public safety, and core support services. There are many public needs to meet, and land is a precious and constrained resource in the county. On Lee Highway, there is relatively little land available for expansion or construction of public facilities. There is also limited financial resources for creating new spaces for public use, affordable housing, better streetscapes and improved stormwater management and infrastructure. To realize the vision, it is imperative that the county and the private sector work together to help achieve the community's aspirations and county goals. A true partnership is fully understanding each other's needs, challenges, opportunities, strengths and weaknesses, and knowing how to leverage the strengths. We must continue to steward the relationship between the neighborhoods and the development community, which is an effort that has been championed by the Lee Highway Alliance. We need a plan for Lee Highway that will guide long-term public and private investment. A plan that is comprehensive so the corridor grows responsibly and without negative impacts to its economy and surrounding neighborhoods. The plan needs to set a bold vision with clear policies and goals, targeted strategies for managing growth, clear expectations for community benefits and incentives for providing them, recommendations for land use and zoning changes, and a streamlined approval process to ensure predictable development outcomes. The plan must also be realistic. Moving forward, achieving the goals may come with some trade-offs. Public infrastructure improvements, including the transformation of Lee Highway, will require enhanced coordination between the private and public sectors. Economic feasibility will impact what types and levels of redevelopment can occur. This may mean more heightened density in areas where additional improvements are needed by the private sector. It may also mean that the areas of change may extend beyond the commercial and multifamily parcels along Lee Highway. The residential edges abutting them may also change to make development feasible. Redevelopment can also impact the way existing businesses operate. Recommendations for a range of strategies that vary along the corridor will be required since conditions and community priorities differ in each neighborhood area. It's hard to predict where and when change will happen. Pace of development varies, and where change happens is often subject to the market and susceptibility to change. The planning study anticipates change and is intended to evaluate the impact of that change along the corridor. The Lee Highway Plan will guide public and private investment comprehensively so the corridor grows responsibly and without negative impacts to its economy and surrounding neighborhoods. The plan for Lee Highway will provide recommendations for improvements to infrastructure and transportation systems, public schools, facilities, and spaces. It will provide recommendations for land use, building height and form to eventually develop land use policy and zoning ordinance amendments. It will also provide recommendations for public investment through the Capital Improvements Plan. As previously stated, the county is currently in phase 2 of the study and has completed the land use scenario analysis for the neighborhood areas along the corridor. Gathering community input is a critical part of the planning study and determining which land use scenarios are most viable. In April and May, a series of virtual neighborhood meetings will be held to share the bold vision and preliminary ideas in the land use scenario analysis. Feedback on the preliminary ideas will be used to synthesize the land use scenarios and develop a preliminary concept plan for the corridor, which staff anticipates beginning in May. As we develop the preliminary concept plan, the planning team will continue to analyze the scenarios. This includes coordinating with the Virginia Department of Transportation and completing the transportation modeling to evaluate the impacts to streets and intersections. The team will coordinate with Arlington Public Schools to evaluate changes in student enrollment and identify future school models. The planning study will continue to evaluate the public properties along the corridor to clarify a preferred concept for those sites and identify options for providing core support services on public land. It will identify future opportunities for public-private partnerships if new public facilities are needed. It will also clarify future library models. The planning team will also work with the Department of Parks and Recreation to differentiate the use and character of the key proposed publicly accessible open spaces. The planning study will evaluate the potential to achieve the Affordable Housing Master Plan's affordability goal for Lee Highway and identify opportunities to increase affordability and diversity of housing types. In the next step of the process, we will also be taking a closer look at our key historic and cultural resources to determine recommendations for preservation and/or interpretation based on significant stories, people, events, and the eclectic architecture of Lee Highway. Thank you for watching the presentation. Answers to our frequently asked questions and additional information can be found on the project website.